Good morning. Welcome to the OSDE Discretionary Grants Fiscal Management Invoicing webinar meeting. And this is new. We're going to do a few of these over the next couple of months just as we get updates and hear different compliance things from the federal government that we need to share with you. So this will kind of be our trial and error webinar. So forgive me if we do something that doesn't look correct. And again, you all are helping be our guinea pigs, and we hope this will be a good tool in the future to reach everyone, anyone that may have questions, anything involving our discretionary grants. If you all are here, say hello, go on our chat box, say please state your name and your school district and what grant you're working with, and we'd like to say hello. Gary, it looks like Amanda says, do we need to use video? No, you don't need to use video. You're gonna see the PowerPoint, which we will have this available. I did email those who had already registered should have received an email with the PowerPoint. If you did not, my email address is on the PowerPoint here. You'll see that. You can reach out shelly.perkins@sde.ok.gov. And also we'll have a link to this YouTube after the event so you can share with others that may be in your finance department who may benefit from this. Introduction. My name is Shelly Perkins, and I am our agency grant manager. Also, our grant writer, Terry Grissom, will be stepping in, and we have Elizabeth Suddeth here, who is with our climate grant and one of our DOJ grants. We will have a few minutes at the end to take questions if you have any questions. Also, if you're shy and don't want to write your question out, and feel free to after email. Anything is fine. Again, you'll have this PowerPoint. Keep it handy for reference. There's going to be several different URLs that you will want to have and that you can look back on if you have questions throughout the year. We are going through requirements which will help to ensure that your federal audit findings are minimal, and also so that you can receive your district's reimbursements timely. What's an invoice? Do I need an invoice? An invoice is needed. Well, all OSDE discretionary grants, granting districts more than $50,000 and or grants with more than 15 districts will use the online GMS system through SSO, the single sign-on. So you may have other title grants that you're working with, and you put all your expenses there in GMS, and that will continue to be like that for those grants. Our discretionary grants, we have several and that are smaller, especially through the climate grant. There is a smaller fund of money, pot of money that the districts are receiving. So it's a much easier process instead of teaching someone new and having to get affiliated with the GMS system. It's just easier to send that out with an invoice. So those OSDE grants with payouts of less than listed above will have their grantee submit for reimbursement through monthly invoices. Those programs and grants will include Project Aware, the NYCP, which is for our Native youth, the Oklahoma Future Native Leaders, the GSIM, which is our OK Cares and our School Emergency Management Grant, the OK Transform School Climate Grant, our DOJ Stop School Violence Grant, our DOJ Washington Schools Grant, the Javits Gifted and Talented, as well as our grant from the CDC, the Get Fit 1801. And those are who will be using this invoicing system for reimbursement. When to invoice. No federal grant funds will be given to schools prior to expenses incurred. And please remember this, all federal grant funds will be reimbursed after services have been rendered or goods have been received. Again, there will be no upfront funds. It is a reimbursement. After your school has made purchases, then it is reimbursed through the invoicing system. Your invoices should be submitted monthly to the OSDE. There's a hard deadline of the 10th of each month, and we're trying to get, so you will receive your money by the end of that month. You will send, once you have a completed invoice and all documents, you send to both the SDE accounts payable at sde.ok.gov and myself, Shelley.Perkins, at sde.ok.gov. Each school district will be provided an invoice template. This is from the OSDE, and you use this when requesting reimbursement of your funds. Always use the template invoice. This is just a way for our office, our SDE accounts payable, to be able to see that. This is a grant purchase and help to get your funds quicker. You will receive, again, you will receive this template invoice. It's provided with the executed contract and your purchase order, your PO number from the OSDE. The school district is not authorized to start grant spending until their current PO number has been received. Your receipts must be dated within the time frame of the grant or the grant period, the grant contract. And sometimes we do have a few contracts that end September 29th or September 30th, and then a new one starting October 1st. So it kind of laps over school years. So your contracts may not have the same dates as the school calendar. So just keep that in mind. So there are several out there that still have funds available to spend before the end of this month. And that's good. And then you have a new contract. So just be aware of your PO numbers. Here's a copy of the invoice template. And again, each district, as you receive your PO and your executed contract, which your superintendent should have signed, and then State Superintendent Hoffmeister should have signed as well, then you'll receive a copy of that back and with the invoice. And there's lots of information on here with the PO number, the codes that you'll use, your code, your finance people, and it's all there on your invoice. All invoices must include documentation. This is a big one. Please don't send just a copy of that other with the invoice template and put $4,000 and here it is and pay me the money. Please make sure you include documentation for the spending. What is documentation? Your documentation will include expenditure reports for salaries, fringe, and all district expenses, travel documents including hotel, taxi, and airline receipts, mileage log, start-end addresses, and we'll go over that a little more. All of your schools should have district policies. Each district should already have a district-wide policy for paying staff salaries, stipends, spending funds, supplies on travel, etc. You will use those same district policies and apply them here if they are the most restrictive, requiring the same receipts and documentation. The UGG, which we'll talk more about that as well, UGG requires the most restrictive policy be followed in regards to spending federal funds. These receipts will be copied and submitted to the OSDE with an invoice for reimbursement. The school district's finance office will code the grant expenses in their monthly expenditure report using the OCAS codes, the same as for any other expenses incurred, like you're already doing for everything else. Your OCAS codes information, again, can be found on the invoice template supplied by the OSDE. And if you have any specific OCAS coding questions, you can contact Catherine Black, and her email address is here. Documentation on travel. Lots of travel going on to meetings or conferences. Travel mileage will be reimbursed at no more than the current Oklahoma state rate. Current state rate of mileage is 50 cents per mile. And that applies to both personal and school vehicles. Let me go back on that one. Some schools pay a little more. They may pay 55 cents per mile. And if the school pays that to their employee, that's fine. However, the grant cannot reimburse the district more than 50 cents per mile. So you will need to submit your documentation and expect that you'll get reimbursed at the 50 cents per mile. To document travel, it's very easy. If you use the MapQuest and go to mapquest.com, you can list your start and end addresses. You'll list the start and end times and dates, and you'll put the mileage of the vehicle as well as the tag number and the state in which the tag is from. You will always, always, always provide an agenda to the meeting or conference that shows what the date of the conference was, where it was held, and why you're traveling. Please make sure you include your agendas. On the agenda, speaking of agenda, it should show meals provided and should accompany receipts for the same meal, should not be reimbursed. This is a big one. You don't want to double dip. So if someone is traveling and on their agenda it says the meal, the lunch was provided, and then your employee also had a lunch on that same date at that same time, they cannot claim that for reimbursement because there was a meal provided at the conference or the meeting. They may have not liked the chicken that was served or whatever, but they still cannot claim that as a reimbursement. Uber receipts, this is another one, only will be accepted to and from the hotel to the airport. If you, that evening, you're having a conference and the conference ends at 5 o'clock and then that's your free time for the evening, you're more than welcome to go anywhere, and for entertainment. However, the grant will not pay from the hotel to your evening restaurant and then back to the hotel. It will only pay to go back to the airport. At the gms.gov, that's the website that you'll go to check for your out-of-state rates and per diem, and all federal grants file that. The per diem will be paid at no more than listed. Make sure your people are checking that before they go and stay at a hotel that is more than what the GMS, the per diem rates allow. Your school district can reimburse your employees at either the per diem rate or per receipt. It must be consistent with whatever your policy is now that your school is asking, and you just can't flip-flop. So if you pay per receipts, then that's what you'll do. However, that person cannot go out and have $100 dinner and then submit that receipt. So it still has to be under their per diem rates. So just keep that in mind as well. Oh, I have a question. If the district pays a per diem for meals instead of from receipts, how do you want per diem claimed? If your district, if that's your policy, you'll just invoice at those expenses. It does not reimburse for tips, but it will pay for the meals. Does that make sense? And Robin, we can chat afterwards as well. So just submit your receipts and circle the final cost without the tips, and that will be what will go on your expenditure report. And we'll take more questions at the end also if anybody else has questions. Here's a link to the UGG. The UGG is the Uniform Government Guidance, and this is the grant Bible, if you want to say. This is where you would look up any kind of expense, any kind of, is it allowable or non-allowable? This is the federal government's yes or no right there. Allowable expenses. These are just a few. These are the ones that usually everyone is asking for reimbursement for personnel. So your salaries and wages of personnel providing direct services to the grant. You can't, if someone else is already hired and it's teaching, you cannot pay personnel for that teacher. It has to be someone directly associated with the grant. Fringe benefits, your human resources for your LEA for your approved rates that you currently have, they will reimburse for that. Travel, again, any travel that is supporting the project goals and objectives and has been approved by your project director. Project-specific materials and supplies. And again, always just go back to your UGG, or you can also email and ask our office too if you have a question. Unallowable expenses. These are always no alcohol. If you have a drink that evening after your conference, that's on you, and just make sure you put that on a different invoice. If you order room service and there's a drink on it, please make sure that's on a different invoice. Don't submit that in your reimbursements. Airfare, it does cover your airfare if your travel is approved. However, you cannot fly on anything other than coach. Anything else, that would be on you. Advertising and public relations costs, commencement or award cost, goods and services for personal use. No t-shirts. I know every teacher loves their t-shirts and everybody wants to be a team, but you cannot claim the t-shirts. Again, check the UGG. Again, here's a copy of the invoice. This is what you'll want to turn in with your documentation. And feel free to email everything, your documents, your invoice, ask questions. We have several schools that's already been submitting and they've been doing a great job. And do not feel bad to ask a question or ask to look over it before you submit it. Then your final submission will go both to myself and to the OSDE accounts payable. And here's their address, SDE accounts payable at sde.ok.gov. And it should be on the bottom of your invoice. Submit by the 10th of each month. So we have about a week to get anything else that you want to turn in. Those invoices or those contracts that are ending at the end of this month, please make sure that you spend. If you have a question about you have a few dollars left, what supplies that you are interested in, we want to make sure that those are allowable and that we can get those in and spend our funds by the end of the month. Any other questions that anyone wants to type in our group chat, feel more than free to do that. Do you have anything that you want to add? Anything? So we have your climate grant director here if anyone wants to ask her a question. But it's very easy. Once your finance people, once you start filling out the invoices, it is very easy. I know this is very it's just getting the first one done and figuring out how to do it and then use that, as a sample for your next time. So we'll just wait for a couple more minutes if anyone else has any questions. And again, feel free to reach out. I appreciate everyone for being here. You have my email address. It's going to be a busy week, and I thank you so much.